Yeah, it's been a few months, but I think it was pre-COVID, so it's like a new world since we talked.
So was I at Broward Health when we talked?
We did, yeah, but just I don't think for that long.
So I started March 16th, which is 7 months ago, and that's when COVID really started to hit.
That's when they started, the shutdown happened, right? Because I remember I was talking to you in Palm Beach at my office, and then we stopped going there.
Yeah. So the day I started here is the day my son started homeschooling and wasn't allowed back on campus.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's it's a new world. But I tell you, and I know I want to keep our time short, and I want to talk to you about some specific stuff, but I have talked to so many people who have made gains, huge gains in ways that they never would have put pre-COVID, never would have if it were not for COVID. Myself included.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here right now doing this particular thing because I started writing the book when I was stuck at home and I couldn't travel. Yeah. And that led me to this, which is great because it gave me one of my inspirations is you for writing, developing exemplary performance, one person at a time.
Hey, I've seen that before.
Yeah, you resemble that comment.
I do.
You authored it. You wrote the book.
Yeah,
and
that's me.
It's a great book. I reference it in my book, and so it's called Labor to Leadership, and it's about my childhood, growing up disadvantaged, poorly, a lot of abuse and different types of abuse, but not using that as a reason not to be a good, productive human being. Okay, and
it's a reason too.
Yeah, as a reason too, actually, to help more people as I can, because I know how it feels like. But I wrote the second half of the book is about I call them different business elements. And so my goal is to, it's Torisk Pro Advisors. I want to be a business coach, a personal consultant advisor to people who want to have a job they don't like because they're not getting promoted. So I want to help them change that, start getting promoted, start learning why they're not getting and get promoted, promotable at least. Yeah. Or B, they're in a job, but maybe they have a side hustle. They have a real estate license and they're selling houses, 3 houses a year on some weekends. Well, do you want to be a full-time agent? Then let's do that. I'm going to teach you how to do that over the next 12 months, 24 months, whatever, to transition from full-time to your dream job, being your own boss and running your own business. But to do that, you need to understand business elements. You might be great at sales, but there are all these other things you have to know about. And so I want to talk to you, Mr. HR. Not only HR, but you got two really big hats because you were, for many years, a trainer and an educator.
Yeah, that's my role here. It's both training and organization development. Mm-hmm. And so there's really, in human capital, there's really 3 aspects of human capital. One is HR, which is evolving in leading organizations. It's evolving to what's called people and culture. Yeah. And the difference between HR and people and culture is the emphasis on the employee experience. So now HR, instead of being an advocate for the organization, is an advocate for the employee experience. And it's a better balance between what the organization needs and what the individual wants. Mm-hmm. Well, on the other side is training. So in training, we help to develop people's capabilities. A lot of training organizations do what I call checkbox training, meaning they have this library of curriculum. They get everyone in a class. They do this class, whether it's web-based or e-learning or online or in the classroom. And it's a checkbox. I did it. It was a great experience. Now I go back to work and do what I did before. Right. What a more progressive training department does is really focus on people's capabilities and expanding their capabilities for performance in the real world. So that's why the trends in training are shifting from just basically classroom and have this big curriculum to really 3 trends. I had an article published in ES Outlook magazine last year in August, and it's on the future of training. And so the 3 trends that I identified are a trend towards micro-learning, which is taking a task and dividing it into its component steps in developing training on each step in the process. So for example, I just launched a micro-learning class on presentation basics. And it's a series of 6 videos, anywhere from 2 to 6 minutes long. And each video is one specific aspect of what they need to know to do good presentations. So one of them is on the P in the model, which is preparation. So how do I adequately prepare? Another video are on training tips. So when I'm actually acting or doing it, what do I do? And so forth. So if I just need help preparing, I take that 3-minute video is what it is. I see all the presentation tips, I download the job aid, and then I use the job aid to help me prepare for my presentations.
So does this pass the learning baton from the trainer to the management to make sure that the training that they just got is ongoing and carried forward, revisited, and then evaluated, right? Are you sticking with it?
There's 3 ways that this is used. One is people can take responsibility for their own development, whether or not they have a good leader. Okay. 2, it's used in coaching. So it provides tools that coaches can guide people towards to help them in areas where they need to improve, areas that are important and impactful in terms of their performance.
Yes. Yeah.
And then 3, it provides a forum for learning in the flow of work, which is the second trend.
Right.
So instead of taking a half day in a class, they can go into their either learning management system or learning experience system and find the specific module they need, or just Google the topic and watch a YouTube video for a few minutes.
And they can see an immediate impact.
Yeah. Too. And it's right there in the flow of work. It's a couple minutes of their day. Like when I need to learn one of the formulas that I use in Excel for a dashboard that I created. How do I do that formula? I Google it.
Google, YouTube it. All right.
Go right to exactly. And 5 minutes later, I'm doing it on my own. And then the third trend is the trend towards the use of advanced technology, like artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, and the application of those to real-world learning events in a safe environment.
And those
so, for example, in a clinical environment, you could learn all about the human body and how each system within the body interacts with itself, all through the use of virtual reality or augmented reality.
And it's accessible now. It's affordable. Right. It's
absolutely
a lot of it for free, probably.
And there's a lot of tools that make it really easy to develop it as well.
So one of the things I loved about your book is this section was the motivation as a symptom versus a cause. And the reason I loved it was because everyone talks about motivation, but you take a step back and you say, wait a minute, there are other processes involved in making somebody exemplary. And motivation is the last step. There are other factors that go into making a happy employee, and motivation should be the last piece or the least important piece, because there's environment and there's the tools and there's the clear expectations and these other factors that people think are maybe boring or maybe just not inert. They have to be created and they have to be specific. And so that's harder work. It's easier to just say he's not motivated.
Yeah.
Right. So
what's really interesting, Jeremy, is that, for example, I was asked when I was at Comcast. Before that, it was AT&T Broadband. When it was Media One, and we worked together there.
Yes, you did.
I was asked by the VP of training for the whole company, and this is a Fortune 100 company that we worked at, to track ROI for 4 enterprise-level initiatives. And I had no idea how to do it. Right. I loved the classroom, and I loved creating training. Tracking the efficacy of training or the value of training was like, get an accountant to do it. I hated it. But I developed an expertise in it. And that created the intrinsic motivation in me, because I was getting recognized as an expert, to the point where I've presented at conferences on how do we track things that are hard to track, like coaching. How do we do an ROI study on coaching? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, now the new term, and I'm a big, I just love learning. I'm a fan of learning, but in my book, I write about ROI is so old school, right? The new return on investment is return on relationship. It's the ROR. It's the age of relationships. And so there is another metrics of tracking your return based on your relationship, but it is very clear and easy to see when you start doing the 6 degree of separation game, kind of with, how did I get this deal? Oh, I met him and I met her and she introduced me and referred me. It's a new way to do things. And the return on investment is kind of clinical and mechanical, where the return on relationship is organic and it's really it's meaningful. And so and it covers every boundary of industry. Right. And your intrinsic versus what's the other one? Versus extrinsic. Extrinsic.
Yeah, extrinsic is what I do to you. Intrinsic is what you have in you.
Yes, it's the prizes and the rewards and all that. Movie ticket versus the pride, of being an expert now, and the ownership of knowledge and sharing it, really, which is a great reward in itself.
What's also interesting, Jeremy, is that a lot of studies have been done to show that the use of extrinsic rewards, like movie tickets or a bonus, removes the intrinsic reason and replaces it with something else. And once that something else goes away, like the sales contest ends, the motivation goes away. Or they might have joined that organization because they love selling that product. But now they're doing it for a different reason, and it destroys them.
And outside competition, it takes away the internal drive. And
so then organizations have to become addicted to extrinsic motivators and always supplying them to keep that level of performance up to where it is.
Then it's like a morning zoo radio station, right? With the bells and the whistles and the lights and, another sale, woo!
Exactly.
So it's interesting. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, just personally. We've always been very close, even though we haven't talked in many years. Tell me about your speaking. You spoke publicly for a long time, and you did quite a marathon. In public speaking. And what was your favorite part of the speaking? What did you get out of it? Speaking of intrinsic enjoyment and stuff, what did you find most rewarding?
A few things. One is the impact that I had on the audience, because when I designed the speech that I was giving, any speech I was giving, I designed it with what are they going to take away from it. A lot of like conferences that you go to, they have this big name keynote speaker and everyone goes and they're like, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. And then they walk away and do nothing different. And I always wanted to focus on what are they going to take away? How am I going to help them improve just 1%? And if I help them improve 1% and then others help them improve 1% and they take leadership over their own career and do that Google search and find that knowledge that they need and develop that skill that they need to perform at that next level, then that's part of my motivation, is helping them improve a little bit. The other thing is
how did you measure that? How was it measurable? Was there feedback after your speaking?
Not at the level of impact where you can really measure to the ROI level, but you can measure reaction. And in some cases, if there was learning involved, you could measure learning as well.
Follow up, people would reach back out to you and maybe testimonials.
Informally, but not formally. Because at that great of a scale, when you're talking to 1,000 people a year, and that's not even big compared to what a lot of other presenters are doing. At that scale, you can't follow up with everyone. You might be able to see a representative sample, but there's not always ROI and tracking ROI.
Well, I guess the one of the indicators that it's working is you keep getting asked to speak again for other, or back to speak about something else because it had an impact. So there's probably a key. And
and the second motivator is really something inside of me, seeing that I was able to perform at the level of mastery that I expected of myself. So because when I was at learn.com, I was an executive there. And they created this thing called the Tour on Talent, where I went to different cities throughout the United States doing keynote presentations. And about halfway through this, we partnered with ADP. And one of their vice presidents from New Jersey followed me on tour. We would meet. He would do the opening one, and then I would do it. I would do my keynote, and just hearing the audience reaction and how it was different for me from the other people, I knew that I was a step above, and that just, it felt good to have that.
That is so good.
It goes with the impact on people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a dopamine hit for you there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
That's my next step is after this goes away. But even virtually, I think there's a lot of opportunity to help people. Different engagement platform, different way to see how they're getting your vibes. Because I'm an extrovert, I get my energy from people.
Yes.
And so when you're not, it's kind of weird to gauge it through a video screen, especially if you're speaking to maybe 30 people and you can only see 8 of them. Right.
In
your box without.
Or if you have a slide up, and can't see anyone.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. Exactly. So that's going to be.
And they're all on mute because they have a dog in the background or a kid.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. I can't wait to get in front of some real people and talk.
Yeah.
And so
the other thing about it is that it informed the way that I think about developing exemplary performance. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that I have found that the more I prepared, the better off my performance would be.
Oh, yeah.
For the Tour on Talent, before I did the very first presentation, I had about 60 to 80 hours of preparation that I did. And it took me only a couple hours to write what I wanted to do and to do the slides. Wow. I gave it to our marketing team. They made it look really good. But then I rehearsed and memorized exactly what I wanted to say on each slide. And then I went to the next level, which is, what stupid dad joke do I want to tell here? Or where do I want to really make a point? So then I had to accelerate my rate of speech and increase the volume to make that, to show that passion for that. Yeah. Or if I really wanted to think about something, I had to become really slow and deliberate, and just a deliberate pause for long enough to make them think.
And you can see that, right? Even with the lights, though, sometimes it's hard to see the audience. So you got to feel if they're following along with you.
Oh, you could definitely feel the energy in the room. And if you don't get that in the first couple of minutes, you won't.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you got to drive. And so I'm a bad interviewer. Let's explain really quickly what developing exemplary employee means, because it really means a lot of people strive for acceptable. Right. And the point of your book is that, would you rather have a team of 2 or 3 exemplary employees, of the 80-20 Pareto principle, and then a bunch of acceptable, and then a bunch of people who are always just not getting to their potential, or find out everybody's strengths and improve on those strengths? Forget for now their number 2 strength or number 3 acceptable. What are they best at? And let's get them in the position to be the best, and to get that from really good to exemplary. Is that am I on the right track there?
You're right on target. And really the essence of the book is that it's a coaching model for leaders. And it gives the leaders the tool to understand the process of, how do I continually coach someone towards that standard of exemplary, but not in everything they do. If I take a look at all of the tasks in my role here at Broward Health, some of the things that are weaknesses, but I have a team that helps me with those. Some of the things I'm average at. Most of the things I'm average at. But there's a few key things that are either really, really strong or exemplary strengths that I have that we can leverage as an organization, and the organization will strongly benefit from it.
And those are key things. Not a lot of people are exemplary at, but you happen to have the right ones where you can have other people on the team support your other items, because that's people's roles. Now, is it more self-assessment? It's a combination of self-assessing what I'm best at, or is it also I'm myself as a manager observing and saying, you think you're good at that, but really what I see is you're good at this. All right.
So this book is written for leaders to coach people. Mm-hmm. So the approach is a coaching approach. And in coaching, we don't lead with statements, we lead with questions. You know, in coaching, one of the biggest things, so one of the other things that I do is I teach the executive coaching certification program for the Institute of Organization Development. And in that program, it's funny because it's 8 months long, and in each of the sessions, there's one per month, it's a 3-hour session. What always comes up is the difference between inquiry and advocacy. And as a coach, I'm about 5% in advocacy and 95% in inquiry.
Wow.
And when I transformed my leadership style to have a coaching approach to working with people, that led to self-discovery as opposed to me telling them. People always support what they help to create. Yeah. So if they create the solution, they're going to support that solution, whether it's around development or whether it's around a task, whatever it is, they have to create it. So I always have to lead with questions. And even though 90% of the time I ask a question that I already know the answer to,
Lawyer 101.
I want them to think it through. I want to see where they are. Helps me gauge where they are. Helps me understand what their development needs are. Helps me understand the different types of strengths they have, which is another concept in the book that's not present in any other literature. Right. Meaning that there's 2 different types of strength. There's an exemplary strength, which means I'm best in class. But then there's also the concept of an expandable strength. Yes. So this is something that I'm good at. I'm always at or above standards. But I can grow that to the exemplary level through a process of development.
Yeah, and depending on what that is or the level, it will dictate the training course of expanding that.
Yeah.
Without losing your exemplary skills. Also,
if training is the right solution.
Right. It could
because
be
as you pointed out earlier, there's 7 factors that drive performance.
Right. Exactly. Your environment.
So sometimes it's the process. We have to take a look at what's the process that I go through, and everyone's been forced to go through.
Yes.
Do this task. And the process might have to change, or I'm not following a good process.
That's true. Yeah. And then being an open door policy saying, listen, your process just doesn't work in this. We just have to switch around, and you go, oh, wait a minute. That's not the first time I heard it. Maybe let's try it your way.
Right.
And then,
or I might just not know the process. I might be unconsciously incompetent. I might be thinking that I'm doing the right thing, but I don't know that. No, this is an old process. We revised that. We had a whole DMAIC process, 6 Sigma process that we went through to improve it. And
which is another part of the factors is clear expectations and communication, so that you know that another process rolled out last year.
The other thing that's interesting in my research, Jeremy, is that I found, especially in studying really elite performers, like a colleague of mine at learn.com won the gold medal in the 1984 Olympics in swimming. And besides being in the pool 6 days a week for 4 to 6 hours a day, I found that he really had a different view of performance. It was always an iterative process. It was always a process of continually finding that one tweak that's going to get him to that next level. When you're trying to expand a strength, you're not at the area of going from a weakness to a strength.
Right.
But as you expand your expandable strengths and get them closer to that exemplary level, you know, it says a rising tide lifts all ships.
Right.
Well, your weaknesses start to improve. So if I'm not good at doing presentations, and all I do is focus on expanding the preparation part of it, and now when I'm doing presentations, I'm a lot more prepared. Even though I didn't focus on improving the actual presenting itself, I'm going to do better because I'm better prepared.
And then that also improves your self-confidence, which takes your weakness and raises it up a notch.
Raises it up. Yeah. Even though I never bring it up as a coach. I never focus on it as a leader. I only focus on expanding strengths. The only caveat is if the weakness is what's called a derailer. And this is a concept in my next book, which is for individuals that want to develop their own performance, but don't have a leader that can help them do that.
And that's the thing. People call themselves leader, but really they're bosses. Right? There's a huge difference.
Not the same. One of the quotes in the book is the more that you develop, the less you have to manage.
Right. And that's really, I don't want to get too much of it here. I'll get to you offline, but that's something that I'm putting into process now from my transition to a professional advisor is helping the people who I work with now just kind of do what I do, right?
Yeah.
So I got to create a few more of me so that I could take a step back and help more people in a different role.
Right.
Michael, I want to end this recording. I want to talk to you a little bit afterwards, but I want to thank you. Tell us on this recording, A, how we can get a hold of you if people are interested, and B, one piece of advice that if someone was watching, a new leader, somebody maybe a worker who wants to improve themselves and maybe has a boss but wants to look into what you're talking about, how could they do that?
So one of the concepts, well, first of all, you can get in touch with me through my website, michaelsabbag.com. I tried to make it simple for people.
Yes.
And there's a form you can fill out and submit to me, and hopefully I'll get something from you instead of from spammers.
Right. It's Sabbag, and it's S. There's a spelling at the bottom,
Yeah.
S-A-B-A-G.
Yeah.
And I appreciate everything that you've ever done for me, and including my base work years ago. And Trace, who's 22 years old, was just 2 at the time. That's how. Still here too, by the way.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Michael. I'm going to end this recording, and just stand by for me, though. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining the Torisk-Team, Torisk Pro Advisors. We want to help as many people as we can. We deliver key results, and thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you.